Good morning. Good morning, Denise. And we'll have Al turning his camera on here in just a second, our two presenters from the Forest Service. But while we still have individuals logging in, let's go ahead and talk housekeeping and just go over some basic webinar components. So first of all, good morning. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I really appreciate everybody that is joining us today. And what I'd like to do is just take a moment and go over the GoToWebinar control panel. One of the things I want to point out is you are all joining us and you're automatically muted by the software. And we do really want to encourage conversation, questions, and really get that good. Good morning, Mr. Johnson. Glad to see you join us today. But I really want to let you guys know that we want to encourage questions. We want to have that discussion. So there are two different ways that you can do that. There is a question box. You can go ahead and type in your question. For those of you that might be joining us on a tablet or smartphone and typing is not as easy, you can also click on that raise hand feature, and I will be monitoring that, and then I can let you know that I'll unmute you on my end. And then if you are muted on your end, then you can go ahead and ask that question. So again, get those questions to us, get that typed in, please. I don't pay as much attention to the chat, so if you have questions, do use that question answer or raise hand. Hi, Carolyn, I see a raised hand. This is Carolyn Pratt, PTAC Program Manager. I think she was just testing, so good morning to her. And with that, I just want to, also on our GoToWebinar, I want to call everyone's attention to our handout segment. So we have 4 different handouts. We have a copy of all of the slides presented today, as well as the mid-year procurement forecast that Denise pulled together yesterday, that all updated for our information. Of course, she'll be going over that. So again, for those of you that are joining us other than a computer, if you're unable to download those documents, you are welcome to email me after the event, and I will send those documents to you. Also, I do want to let you know this event is being recorded, and we will have the recording posted most likely by Friday, close of business on the PTAC Alaska. So it's ptacalaska.org website. And so if you want to go and review all of the information presented today. So what I'm going to do is I'd like to take a quick moment, since there's a lot of you that are new names to me. And hold on one second while I quick throw dog in the kennel. Or just throw dog outside, that works well. I just want to take a moment and explain Alaska PTAC. So the PTAC, the Procurement Technical Assistance Center, we are a federally funded nonprofit organization. We have a cooperative agreement with the state of Alaska. And what I really want you to take away today is that the PTACs are a national association, and the whole purpose of our existence is to provide one-on-one free assistance with all aspects of government contracting, from cradle to grave, start to finish, for both federal, state, and local purchasing activity. As I had mentioned previously, we do offer free one-on-one assistance counseling programs, and currently right now, the Alaska PTAC, we're still all working remotely, but we're here, as like we're using our webinar process today. We can work with you virtually. We also offer free workshops, and again, with the thanks of the Forest Service working with us and us allowing us to help them with the industry day information, we get to provide great programming for you all to participate in. The Alaska PTAC is one of 90 other PTACs across the US, Puerto Rico, and Guam. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. For those, if you're joined because you signed up through the contract opportunities on Beta SAM, that is now the sam.gov website, thank you. And if you aren't familiar with the PTAC in your area, I do have a link here, the ptac-us.org. And that landing page, there's a map of the US, and you can click on your state and find all of the wonderful PTACs in your area. And of course, you're always welcome to reach out to the Alaska PTAC as well. We're all here to help you. So that's a little bit about us and why I am kicking this off and why you're seeing my landing page. I do have our contact information for the Alaska PTAC, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. It's part of our slides. Instead, Miss Denise, let me pull up your PowerPoint presentation and get that running for you. Give me 2 seconds here. All right, and Miss Denise, you are up. I'm going to go ahead and mute myself and turn off my video, and I'll let you introduce yourself. The mic is yours.
Thanks, Jody. Good morning, everybody. Like Jody said, my name is Denise Murphy, and I'm going to go over a few things with you today, do a brief introduction of myself, talk a little bit about the reorganization. The Forest Service went through a reorganization for procurement. Also talk a little bit about our procurement forecast and give you a quick overview about the Great American Outdoors Act and what we have there. So Jody, if you could slip to the next slide, please. So my name is Denise Murphy. I am a procurement analyst for the Forest Service, and I also happen to be the small business coordinator for the Northwest Zone. My contact information is there on the slide. You're welcome to contact me at any time with either by email or by my phone, and I'm available to discuss your capability statements. If you want to email that to me, I want to have a one-on-one meeting, however you want to proceed. Just give me a call or send me an email, and I will set something up with you. If you can move to the next slide, please, Jody. So the Forest Service recently underwent a reorganization, and that started, our new organization started on the 1st of October of this last year, 2020. We reorganized into 4 different zones. There's the East, Intermountain, Southwest, and Northwest zones. Each zone is made up of contract service areas, or you'll hear them referred to as CSAs. And they specialize, each one specializes. They're either a service and supply CSA or they're a construction and AE CNA. So the contract specialists who work in those groups, that's all they work on. The Northwest Zone is made up of 7 different contract service areas, and each of our CSAs support a specific forest either in the state of Alaska, Washington, or Oregon. And so the next slide, please. Oh, no, don't move it yet. I'm sorry. So the contract service area leads that support Alaska are CSA number 4. They handle supply requirements and service requirements for the Chugach and Tongass National Forest, and the lead for that is Raymond Paget. If you want his contact information, please send me an email. And you're going to meet the CSA number 7, who does construction AE. Al Nguyen is the lead for that group, and he's going to be the one that's going to be presenting about the MATOC today. So his team supports the state of Alaska as well as several forests within the state of Washington. Next slide, Jody. So the Forest Service just recently updated their procurement forecast. Every year we publish a forecast in the month of October, and it's to let contractors know what we're planning to do in the next fiscal year, in this fiscal year. We update it every year in April, and it's published mid-May, late May, early June timeframe. It was just submitted about 2 weeks ago. So the date for posting on the web has not been announced yet, but you'll see the web link there on the slide to where you can find the nationwide procurement forecast for all of the Forest Service. And you can download that to your computer and search by certain states, by different categories of work. It's very customizable. If you're unsure of who to contact about a project, you can send inquiries to that general email box there that's on the slide. That is to our agency small business specialist. Her name is Ashley Thompson, and she monitors that email box and will get back to you, or forward the email on to someone like myself, who's a small business coordinator. I assist her, and then I will be the one that will be responding to you. Next slide, Jody. So the GAOA projects, wanted to go over that a little bit. In fiscal year 20, Congress passed the Great American Outdoors Act, and that provided the Forest Service with $285 million per year for the next 5 years to address significant backlog in deferred maintenance projects. All of the projects are focused on reducing the amount of deferred maintenance for both transportation and non-transportation based projects. And I wanted to go over, and I'm trying to look and see. So there was an industry day that was held just this past week on the 20th of May, the Forest Service had, with breakout sessions for each service, supply, construction, and A&E. Those were the main session of the industry day was recorded, and that information, I have been told, will be posted to sam.gov. So if you miss that event, you will be able to go back and listen to the main industry day. The breakout sessions were not recorded, but I believe the slides from each of those industry day sessions and the questions and answers that were asked will be posted to sam.gov. Next slide, Jody. So some examples of supplies that the Forest Service will be purchasing for under the GAOA include, but are not limited to, buying supplies like fire rings, prefabricated vault toilets, bear-proof containers for storage of food or trash, and then also general campground and trail materials. Next slide. So the different types of services, and these are just examples, and it's not limited to just this, but a lot of what we're probably looking to do is to get some brushing work on the trails, along the roadsides, and in our campgrounds to get those cleaned up. Next slide, Jody. So construction projects will be upgrading our facilities, like replacing roofs, upgrading trails, building new trails or making them better, installing bridges, either trail or road bridges, updating campgrounds, and making just general improvements, construction on roads. Next slide. And then AE is another big one that we'll be doing contracts for. So there'll be facilities work, trails, bridges, again, campgrounds, and roads. For the construction projects that I just talked about, some of the stuff will have to have some design work done to it. Next slide. So how are we going to go about doing this? So there's existing agency contracts. There'll be set-asides, either woman-owned, small business, hub zone, 8A. We'll look at General Services Administration, GSA schedule contracts, and the solicitation types that we'll be using will be requests for quote, requests for proposals, and the proposals will have evaluation factors. It'll either be trade-off or lowest price technically acceptable. Are examples of what kind of evaluation factors you could see on those solicitations. If you're interested in them, you'll want to make sure that you read the solicitations carefully, understand what kind of information that you need to submit back with your proposal or your quote in order to allow the Forest Service to do, a timely evaluation of what you've submitted. Next slide, please. So some information, where can you find a little bit more about this stuff? So the solicitations will be posted on the SAM website, and I do know it was just recently updated. SAM was updated. Beta SAM went away. They did have some problems with that. I received an email yesterday about some issues with getting into the site, so I don't know if that's been resolved yet. There is a Forest Service GAOA website. That link is there. Gives more information about Forest Service projects on that GAOA specific. And then we're also partnering with two other agencies, so the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the National Park Service. The Fish and Wildlife link kind of goes to they had a industry day as well, and I think that has passed. I'm not sure, I'm assuming, but I'm not sure if they'll be posting any kind of a recording from their session, but the Park Service site talks about different projects that they have. I checked the links out when I was putting the slideshow together. So if you're interested in other projects, you'll want to look at those links, try to find the points of contact for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife and National Park Service to ask more information about the projects that they have, which will be similar to what Forest Service is doing. The next slide, Jody. So where to get help? So your PTAC, like Jody said, she's here, that PTAC officers are here to help. This is the same link that Jody talked about in her opening remarks. If you're not from the state of Alaska, you can find your local PTAC by going to that website, clicking on your state, and find your local PTACs. The Small Business Administration is also someplace you can go for assistance as well, SBA office, your local SBA office. And then the Forest Service has set up a general email box. So if you have questions after today that you think about after this webinar is over, you're more than welcome to email myself, or if you want, you can send general to that general email box there, and it's monitored, and we'll get you an answer regarding your question. Next slide, Jody. Oh, I'm at the end. So I lost track, lost count. So if there's any questions, so as Jody had said, here's the mid-year procurement forecast. It is posted as a handout here with today's handouts in the webinar. If you have any questions about a specific project, I'm the point of contact for all of them. So just give me a call or send me an email, and I'll get you more information about the project. It lists NAICS codes there, the estimated start work dates, which are estimated. So as you can see, some of them have already passed. It gives a general name where the location of the project is at. We're targeting small business, and that's not set in stone. It's a forecast. It's exactly what it is. So the source of supply is not set in stone, and in the price range there, and there's a key at the very bottom of the slide deck, and that PDF. There's a key at the bottom that tells you what the price means. So what does A mean, and then SB, what does SB mean, and all those. So that's, or no, I didn't do the. I'm sorry, I didn't do the set asides, but I gave a key of the price ranges and then the quarter for when we were looking to start the work, and also provided a link there to the Forest Service general email address as well as a link to the USDA's nationwide forecast if you're interested in other projects outside of our Northwest Zone area. So with that, I'll stop and see if anybody has any questions before we move into Al's discussion about the MATOC.
Thank you, Denise. So anyone questions at all? I'll give you a moment to go ahead, and if you have any of those questions, again, you're welcome to type in the question into the question answer box, or simply raise your hand if you have any questions or comments. And real quick, I'm going to go ahead and just put Denise's contact information back up on the screen. And again, those slides are available on that handout deck. So last call for questions. If you think of anything, you can go ahead and get those questions entered, and we can go over those questions after Al's section. So at this point in time, Al, I'm going to go ahead and make you presenter. So if you would, you should have that. Go ahead and share your screen for us.
Okay. All right.
Beautiful.
Now I gotta share the screen.
Yeah, so under the sharing segment, under the play button, there's that drop down menu if you wanted to set that to a second screen to have your speaker notes.
Let's see. Okay. All right. Is it showing up?
It is.
Okay, great.
I'm still seeing the slide deck too.
Oh, okay.
Being stubborn on you. Oh, are you doing two monitors? There it goes. And now under your sharing and your go-to webinar control panel, if you want to do screen 2. And currently we're just seeing a blue screen. Give it just a second, see if it loads. So hopefully for our attendees, while we get this all set up, ready to go, you're thinking of questions. Oh, we do have one question from Thailand. So I'm going to quick check on that. We have a question from Thailand Martin while you were setting up your screen, Al. And they're asking, let me extend this just so I can read it a little better. So Thailand is asking, is there specific numbers to look up contract opportunities on Beta SAM or Fed Connect based on the procurement forecast? Denise, do you have a comment to add to that particular?
Hi, this is Denise. No, there's not a specific number or way to search for it. What I would suggest is searching by either the location. I think you can just search by location, the state, or like name, a keyword, the name in the project. So I don't guarantee that the name that you see on the procurement forecast will actually match what's in the posting or the title of solicitation. However, we do try to match it as close as possible so that you can find it. So there's no real number. And then once you find it, then you'll see the solicitation number. So that would be the unique identifier once it's posted, would be the solicitation. If you have any questions, though, to find out if it's been posted yet or not, you're welcome to email me, and then I'll find out and get back to you.
Thanks, Denise. This is also a great way to reach out to your local PTAC or even the Alaska PTAC and set up one-on-one appointments on if you need assistance in using that contract opportunity site. I know they've made some updates. It's been about several weeks now where they've changed their format on the contract opportunities, and of course with the beta SAM merge. But a lot of times just the keywords, and you can limit your search to the agency itself. We go in and select the USDA and then select Forest Service. And again, then you can use both the NAICS codes and keywords to help find those different activities. Okay, Al, looks good. So at this point in time, I will stop talking and the mic is all yours.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jody. And so, hello everyone, I'm Al. Welcome to the Pre-Proposal Conference and Road Maintenance and Construction MATOC. And I'm just gonna go to the next slide now. Again, that's my contact info. My supervisory contracting officer, as Denise mentioned, I'm responsible for construction and A&E projects in Alaska and Washington. There's my email. Okay, and the topics we'll cover today are the Forest Service's mission, the purpose of this conference, contract overview, anticipated projects, basis of award, proposal submission, anticipated milestones, and question and answers. Okay. So really quick, our mission statement is to sustain the health, diversity, and productivity of the nation's forests and grasslands to meet the needs of present and future generations. Okay, so the purpose of this conference is to provide an overview of the acquisition and improve understanding of the government's requirement, and also to receive feedback from industry. Because I'm going to be presenting some things today, and it's all in draft mode right now, and so I hope if you see anything that sticks out that you want to provide feedback on how to improve, or something that's not just working very well, please by all means let us know. And again, so that's the disclaimer, is everything presented today is subject to change. I don't anticipate it changing substantially, but you never know, somebody might have a great idea, we want to incorporate it. And it's still, the formal RP still needs to be gone through the review process. So by all means, this is your chance to kind of influence that process and help make us a little better in what we do and how we evaluate proposals. So so right now the information is subject to change, but once the official formal RFP goes out, please do follow what it says there and see if there's any changes, and follow the formal RFP. Okay, so overview is we got a lot of work planned for roads and maintenance. So we're looking at a tool that will help us meet these requirements quickly. And so we're looking at multiple award task order contract, which is abbreviated as MATOC. And so it's basically a group, and we're looking at, in this case, up to 10 IDIQs, indefinite delivery, indefinite quantities contracts with a shared capacity of 49 million and a 5-year ordering period. Okay, so it's going to be a total small business set aside, because early on in this process, we sent a sources sought out to industry, and then we asked, hey, is anybody interested? And so we got sufficient response back from small businesses that say, yes, we're small businesses and we're interested. So that's awesome. Because of that feedback, we're able to set aside for small business. So thank you for all those that submitted and help influence our strategy in that way. And so next is the NAICS code. You have that basis of award, and we'll talk about it a little bit more later. It's going to be best value trade-off. So this seed project is going to have this MATOC is going to have 3 seed projects, and each one And for those who don't win a seed project, they'll be receiving a minimum guarantee of $2,500, which makes the contract official in the sense that it receives consideration, and it's kind of our way of saying, that this is for your burden of providing a proposal, a MATOC. If for some reason 5 years pass and the awardee doesn't win a project, at least they have a little consolation prize. So there's that. And finally, this is a little something new, founded from the GSA. They started this process where they're doing on and off ramping, and I think it's pretty cool because it addresses one of the major weaknesses of a MATOC, because as time passes by, one of the major concerns is that we start to lose the competitiveness in our contractor pool. In other words, contractors, they might go out of business, or they might pivot to a different industry, and so they're not interested in proposing to our task order projects anymore. And so what we do is, but we talk to them and say, hey, we noticed that you haven't been proposing, or the standards aren't up to par. Do you want to off ramp? And so we can cut you loose out of the pool. And on the same side, on the other side of the coin, is to on ramp contractors. So if a few contractors leave, then we would need more to come in to make that MATOC pool competitive. And so there's a on-ramping process where we would post a solicitation on sam.gov, and then evaluate just like we evaluated now, and then introduce a second set of contractors, and they'll be able to compete just as everybody else in the pool. So it's a really cool feature, the on and off ramping of contractors and awardees. That will, I think it's going to be win-win, because if somebody who weren't selected this time, they receive some feedback and in their debriefing on how to improve, then they can directly improve their proposal and go on ramp into the second phase of this project. And so and then at the same time for us, we would keep our pool competitive. So I think it's pretty cool. Next is the contract overview. So as I mentioned before, we'll have about 10 contractors in our pool. And so with each projects that come in, each one of these contractors will have fair opportunity to compete amongst each other. And realistically, it's probably going to be like half Tugach and half Tongass. And so, and maybe there'll be some overlap, but it's going to be smaller than it would seem as far as competition goes. But the right number where there's not too many and not too few of contractors in each area. And so if we don't mention otherwise, it's going to be firm fixed price and lowest price technically acceptable on who wins those task orders, just like the T projects. So anticipated projects, it's right now we have a current tool called the Road Maintenance and Construction BPA, Blanket Purchase Agreement, and it's intended for projects under $250,000. So this MATOC that we're talking about now is going to supplement that by going over $250K for all these other projects. And just looking at the next 5 years, because of pretty much the Great American Outdoors Act, that's going to be infusing a lot of money into our budget for projects that have been previously deferred. We're looking at a lot of projects. So for example, we have 78 projects anticipated with a total of 58 million. And now, of course, not all of these projects and money is going to come into this tool, because some of it is going to go into other, might not even be realized and funded, or they might be going to another tool, or just standalone contracts, right? But a good chunk of this is intended for this MATOC that we're talking about now. And so the median project we're looking at is 700,000, and the range is 260K to 1.8 million. Okay, so contract scope, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's pretty much it's not limited, but it includes all these things. It's highway, street, and bridge construction and maintenance. It includes new work, additions, alterations, maintenance and repairs of roads and maintenance. So there's some construction and services here. There's aquatic organism passageways as well. And so moving on to the contract scope, place of performance, it's going to be in Alaska. And so we're looking at Chugach National Forest, and then Tongass National Forest. So you'll see that some of the areas are islands, and so this I'll talk about this a little bit more. It's going to be some areas might be remote, and some areas might be pretty close to the city. So just something to keep in mind that you're not required to do both. Although if in your proposal you can demonstrate that you can do both and convince us that you can do it well, then you might be evaluated a little bit more positively. Okay, so the projects, they're going to be primarily on forest system roads and recreation areas. Some of them are going to be paved and graveled, or some even unserviced. Like I mentioned, some is going to be remote and rural, so you don't have easy access to facilities or cell phone coverage. And of course, this is Alaska, so you've got a shorter construction season. Okay, so basis of award is best value trade-off, and then these are the evaluation factors. So when it's time to submit your proposal, I'm going to ask you to submit one email with 2 PDFs. So the first PDF is going to be your volume 1, which are your technical factors. And then we want to keep the pricing separate. So the volume 2 is going to be pricing in a separate PDF. And so the chart's pretty much self-explanatory. As you move from left to right, you'll see your prior experience, past performance, performance capability, and price being your factors. And then the furthest right column shows your relative importance. So, prior experience being the most important, and it goes down to price. When you combine all those other factors 1, 2, and 3, prices, they're going to be significantly more important than price. And the thought process behind that is that, hey, we want to make sure in this phase of the process, we want to make sure that we're getting quality contractors who can do the work. Because what good if you pay a really dirt cheap price if you're not getting the quality of work that you're needing, right? So that's how we're planning to evaluate. And here's what you'll need to submit in your proposal. So to address factor 1, we're asking for 5 projects, and they should be recent, which is anything current above 50% in completion right now, or within the last 5 years. So that defines recency. And then relevancy is how similar the scope is compared to what you've done in the past. And so moving on to factor 2 is your past performance. So we're going to look at your CPARS evaluations. And just a little quick tip about that. If you're a small business and you're still trying to build up your resume, and for example, you're a small business, you subcontract, but it's $1 on a project that's lower than the dollar value where CPARS evaluations are required. If you're a small business, you can request that from the agency and say, hey, just explain to them, I'm trying to build up my CPARS. Would you be able to provide me an evaluation? And so they should be able to help you there. So definitely worth asking for, because CPARS plays an important role in past performance evaluation. And then we'll also be asking for past performance questionnaires. So it's a form that we'll provide that you can send to your prior clients so they can fill out, so we can see how you did on those projects. Moving on to factor 3 is your performance capability. So we're going to be asking for a few things here. Is your equipment list to see what you have in your inventory as far as equipment, and then your approach and knowledge of the geographic area, and then your area of performance, if you can do Chugach, Tongass, or both. Your bonding capability, we're asking for 250K bonding capacity per project. That's just because that meets the minimum. And then your C project schedule, we want to see you can propose a project that's a schedule that's going to be pretty effective but realistic, accounting for all the restraints and conditions that encompasses Alaska. And finally, your price, you got your SF33, which is the beginning of your offer, and then your max equipment rental rates. We want to see the most, how much your rates would be, and so they'll be binding in the contract, but they'll be your maximum. So it just gives us an idea of how much each project is going to cost later on, and if it's like in a nearby location and it's going to be much less, by all means use the lower rate. Because you're allowed to do that, but you just can't exceed that. So just something to be mindful of. And then also your price schedule, and then your G&A and your C project cost proposal. And so we're asking for a cost breakdown in each C project proposal. So you got to break it out by labor, materials, profit. And so moving on to the next slide is just a quick explanation on the process, because some people, they feel like they submit the proposal and it kind of goes into a black hole. I just want to reassure you that that's not the case, and that on the government side, we're working hard to make sure that it's evaluated fairly. So it starts off with the Source Selection Evaluation Board. Each member is going to be reviewing your proposal independently, right? And then so after that, we're going to hold a consensus to make sure everybody's on the same page. And I'm not an evaluator, but I'm there as more as a referee to make sure that everybody's doing it fairly and consistently. And then after that, we provide a work product, and that product gets reviewed by at least 2 other persons. So it's not a really fast process, but it ensures that the government is making a really good selection on who we choose, and also we do it fairly. And so moving on to for each seed project. So now, this initial phase is to identify, our top candidates, right? And then so those awardees, we're going to look at their seed projects, and so we're going to see which proposals are technically acceptable, and then from there is who's the lowest price for the seed projects, and so that determines the seed project winners. Okay, so next is page limits. So I mentioned earlier, prior experience is important, and so there's a page limit of 10 pages for that section. So please, submit 10 or less, because anything more than that is we can't look at it. We're not going to evaluate it, and if anything, it just shows that this contractor might have a little trouble following the instructions, which is not a good sign. So please stick to this page limit. So next is, like I mentioned before, sign all amendments just to ensure that you're proposing to this current version that we have out on the street on SAM.gov. Finally, submit your best proposal up front, because you probably might not get a chance to discuss further or revise. And so your best pricing and as you see fit, and also your best proposal, and then we'll go from there. And then, most importantly is, why we're here. We're here to get feedback from you guys, and then also at the end of the process, you can get feedback as well. Especially even if you win, you want to know if there are any weaknesses, right? Because you can always do better. Or if you don't win this time, you can ask, for debriefing and see how you might have a better chance next time. Especially with the on-ramp feature we have now, that would make it more useful to you, I believe. And so, especially, provide us feedback, especially if you don't propose. We want to know, what's a barrier to you and what's holding you back as far as not proposing. Okay. So last slide is going to talk about the anticipated milestones. So as I mentioned before, the sources side has been done. Pre-solicitation notice, where we give out that 15-day heads up that an RFP is coming. So that's done. I'm planning for the RFP to be out in about 2 weeks. And so once it's out, it'll be available for 30 days. So you'll have 30 days to prepare your proposal. And in between that time period, you'll have a period to ask questions, and so those questions are due 15 days before the proposal due date. And so for the questions, please consolidate your questions. Make sure you read your the RFP thoroughly before you ask the questions, and submit all your questions in one shot if you can. And then we'll do our best to address those questions as soon as possible. And so from there, we got the evaluation process. Like I mentioned, it's a lengthy process, and it starts after the due date where we receive the proposals, and it could run about 2 weeks. And so from there is another week after the evaluation, we got to prepare the award, make notices to Congress, and letting people know heads up we're moving this award. And so we're hopefully looking to award it in early August. Okay, so with that all said, I'm available for questions and answers.
All right, thanks, Al. I'm just double checking. So we do have a couple questions rolling in. Let me go ahead and open that question and answer box. Okay, so we have a question here from Jeff Whaley. He says, and let me just again make this box just a little bigger. It says, and he has the number 10 in parentheses, and he says IDIQs with a shared capacity of 49 million. Does this mean 10 on-ramp contract holders on one MATOC, or are there 10 individual MATOCs with multiple contract holders? Do you need me to repeat that now that I understand the question a little better?
Yeah, maybe rephrase it if that helps.
Sure. So on one of your slides, you had the number 10. I believe it was on the on-ramping. So we're asking, is there going to be one MATOC with 10 contractors, or are we looking at 10 individual MATOCs with multiple contractors? So I think we're trying to get a range of how many contract holders there'll be for this MATOC.
I gotcha. And thanks for the question. And I know I talk fast. So MATOC is just a name of what we're calling it, right? So this whole overall thing is called a MATOC, right? And so it's a tool that we use, and within that tool, there are there's going to be up to 10. So there might be less, depending on how it looks, and so there might be less or maybe more, who knows? But we're looking around 10 IDIQs, and that's just the contract type, right? Because
okay, so you're looking at for the one MATOC. Yeah, the one MATOC for this activity, and we are looking at the potential ceiling of 10 contractors that will hold contracts to bid for the activity for that specific MATOC.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like later on, I mentioned that there's going to theoretically, if everything goes to this tool, we're going to bust the capacity by maybe 10 million. But that's not going to happen. But like that's how it would work. Each project eats away at the capacity, and then once you're up to 49 million, hopefully we would start the next process, which is to have another MATOC to this road construction maintenance MATOC 2.0. So we would do the next version of it before the capacity is gone.
Okay, so we do have another question then. Thanks, Jeff, for your question and letting us have a chance to clarify that. Yeah. So Eric McLaurin is asking, he says, you mentioned that the contract will have an on-ramp, off-ramp feature. Given the IDIQ is proposed as a 5-year term, it would appear that the on-ramping process may leave little time for anyone new to get significant opportunities.
Potentially, yes, but we wouldn't like maybe in like a year or two, or maybe in the middle where we see that we need it, then they can at least have the remainder of the MATOC, which is like 2 years or so, and that's sufficient time to have at least a few projects. So that'd be something that the contractor would have to decide if it's worth it for them. But it's available as an option. So yeah, but like we wouldn't do it at the very end, and it's not gonna increase the 5-year limit. It's all, even if you start at year 3, it's going to end at year 5, and so it's not going to be a perpetual stew where it just keeps on expanding. It's going to be 5 years, and then we're on to the next 2.0, as I mentioned.
Thank you, Al. All right,
Sure.
Any other questions? Because we have a lot of time, and this is a great opportunity. We have 2 experienced contracting officers here. So even if you have questions regarding this particular MATOC, but also other Forest Service activity, now is a great opportunity for questions. And in fact, while we give everyone a chance to get their questions typed up, we have Mike Johnson who's joined us. Mike, did you want a moment to say hi to everyone? I kind of slid right past you joining us today. That was a bit rude of me, but did you want to say hello? The mic is yours.
So my name is Mike Johnson, and I am the zone chief for the Northwest Zone. And I want to thank Denise and Al, and especially the PTAC for pulling this together. I think it's our connections with industry is extremely important, and this really helps us get some level of interaction going. And I thought the presentations were well done, well pulled together, and most definitely look forward to any questions or comments that may come in. So please, the floor is yours. If you got any burning questions that you you really want answered, just bring them up and we'll address them.
All right, thank you, Mike. So Brian, I see that you have had your hand raised. For some reason, it just now popped up. So Brian, I am going to unmute you. And so if you want to go ahead and Mike is yours.
Okay. We're kind of new to the government bidding. We've worked for different outfits. We have equipment and stuff. It seems to me this is limiting our possibilities immensely with the first part of the criteria. You know, can we use basically different contracts we've worked on other than Forest Service or state?
Absolutely.
How do we get involved in this? Because you're really limiting us big time with your criteria on the first three.
Well, the criteria doesn't say that it's got to be federal or Forest Service only experience. So whatever experience you have that's relevant to the type of work that's being done, definitely include that. Like I said, it doesn't have to be federal or Forest Service specific. And according to our process, any firm that does not have any experience or any past performance in this type of work, we do have a rating of neutral for those firms, and that's what would be applied.
Okay, because we've bid on a couple different contracts in the last few years on brushing, and we're substantially lower, and we were right on the island where it was happening, and they were awarded to out-of-state businesses. And has any of that changed? Because we were pretty confused over that whole deal. We were like 15% lower than anybody, and we were right here ready to go, and we had previous experience, but with a different contractor. We were just moving out on our own. Has any of that changed then?
It's hard to address that not being intimately familiar with the solicitation and the contract action that you're referencing. But on your past performance information, you would mark whether you were the prime contractor on that contract or as a subcontractor.
Okay. So it definitely limits us to pursue anything like that.
So Brian, this is Jody with PTAC. What I suggest is you have the contact information for everyone, for Denise and Al, and we can get Mike's contact information direct also. If you want to continue the conversation specifically to past activities to get a better understanding, you're also welcome to set an appointment with PTAC, and we can talk more about that so that you are better situated for future opportunities. Again, I'd like you to have that opportunity to continue this conversation, but hopefully that resolved for the immediacy of this event. Did you have any other questions specific to this event?
No, I don't.
Okay, thanks, Brian. And again, grab those handouts. If you're unable to download the handouts for any reason, just reach out to me after the event. I'll make sure to get those to you so that you have everyone's contact information so we can continue this conversation with you on a one-on-one basis. So thank you for raising your hand. I'm going to go ahead and mute you at this time because I have a couple more questions rolling in. So thank you, Brian. Gentlemen, Denise, I have a question for Tammy Taylor, and she noted it was indicated that the task orders were going to be firm fixed price, but then it was also indicated that we needed to provide equipment pricing. How are those used to compare our pricing? And I'm assuming that question is related directly to the MATOC.
Okay. So that question is for me then, right?
Yeah, do you need me to repeat that?
No, I got it. I just heard Denise's name, so I was going to see if she wanted to answer. Because she is helping me a lot in providing the review. So anyways, to address the question, it's just going to be a part of the evaluation. It's going to be multiple factors and perspectives as far as pricing goes. So, like I mentioned, there's C project, your pricing there, your equipment rates, and some schedules. So it's going to be a mix of those things. Did that help?
Okay. Tammy, let me know if you need more information or if you want to discuss this more. Go ahead and click your raise hand feature on GoToMeeting and I can unmute you. But at this point in time, I do have someone else with a hand raised. So Eric McLaurin, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. So just unmute on your end and then the mic is yours. I'm showing that you're self-muted, Eric.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay,
Beautiful.
very good. Okay, good. I have two questions pertaining to the MATOC. One being follow-up to the on-ramp question. Thanks for responding to that. You indicated that you may be, for on-ramping, you might put out another solicitation for new firms to respond to. Have you considered maybe when you're going through your current MATOC evaluation that firms that don't make the cut, if you rank order them, that you go to that first firm that didn't make the cut to offer them that opportunity instead of going for a whole new solicitation? I was just curious about that. I've seen that with some other agencies where they rank order all their firms, and those that did not make the cut, they put them on the side to say, hey, if we on ramp, we'll go to the first firm that was ranked, in that order. So it was just something for consideration there.
Oh yeah, and that's a good idea. We would do that, but in addition to also posting online so that everybody gets a fair shot at it, not just the people who didn't get it the first time, because we want to leave the onus up to the contractors to go out and find their own opportunities. We can only provide it so that everybody can see it, so it's fair.
Good. In regards to the scope, I just want to confirm that the scope is strictly construction and won't be any design build in this particular scope.
Correct.
Okay, so everything will be pretty much designed and we'll just be bidding on design projects.
Correct.
Okay, all right. And I think that's all I'm going to ask. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Eric. I'm going to go ahead and just mute you from my end. And if you think of anything else, go ahead and raise your hand again. One of the things that I'd like to add is when this comes out in that solicitation phase, feel free to ask these questions again during when it's an open solicitation so that we can get those on record, and that will help for that contracting activity. So yes, we've had that opportunity of, hey, can we use some sort of ranking mechanism to go back and more quickly on-ramp new contractors when that opportunity arises versus the delay of posting it as a new solicitation activity for an ongoing MATOC. So if you get those questions in during that solicitation phase, and remember, pay attention to the time allowance. Don't wait to the last minute to submit those questions when that solicitation opens. That really helps refresh contracting officers' memories and gets that into that conversation. So thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. That's good information. I do have another question. Ryan Reddick is asking, is there anticipation for an AE IDIQ to pair with this MATOC?
Maybe in the future, we currently have an A&E tool that covers Alaska. So, like I said, the limiting factors would be the time period and also the capacity. Capacity being the dollars used. So, like if we find out, and we're going to forecast ahead of time to make sure we don't kind of paint ourselves into a corner. So we want to have a heads up. Hey, it looks like this A&E IDIQ is going to expire soon, or we're using up all the capacity, and so we'll look at it and we'll make advanced planning and see if it's going to be done. So to answer your question, eventually in the future, and those are the two factors that would help determine that.
Thank you, Al. Ian had to leave, Ian Skogsberg, but he just wanted to let you know he had to step into another meeting and needed to leave early, and wanted to say thank you for hosting the informative meeting. So I just wanted to give you guys that. information. So we do have a little bit more time. Does anybody else have any other questions?
So
Raised hands?
I'd like to speak a little more on the A&E portion of the question that came up. And that is, it was briefly mentioned that we are partnering with Fish and Wildlife Service, the Department of Interior, using the GAOA funding as a catalyst to collaborate on multiple award IDIQs. One of those IDIQs is focused on A&E work, and so the Fish and Wildlife DOI has the solicitation out for those IDIQs, and they will cover multiple states, and one of them of which is Alaska. Those IDIQs will be open for us to use either on GAOA projects or even non-GAOA projects, and they're going to have quite the capacity. So those shared contracts like that with other agencies also plays into us identifying if and when to go out with new solicitations for our own agency specific IDIQs. So if you're a small business and those A&E IDIQs that are out with Fish and Wildlife, they are set aside for small businesses. So if you are interested in those, please make sure you find it in sam.gov and respond accordingly.
Thank you. Eric, I apologize. I thought I hadn't dropped your hand from the previous. So I am unmuting you on my end. The mic is yours.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, I did have a couple of follow-up questions. One being, I think you may have answered this, Mr. Johnson, but will the contract be available to be used for any Department of Interior agency or only strictly for Forest Service?
No, it will be every DOI agency. I forget, they've got another term for what they call them, but it's open for both Forest Service and DOI agencies.
Okay. Okay. Very good. So if we had clients within, let's just say, you know, the Park Service or another entity, and they needed to work, we can direct them to you, Mr. Nguyen, and you would, if we had the contract vehicle, and they can look for getting their services through you all if it was in Alaska?
I'm sorry, ask that question again.
In other words, if we had a client that was in another DOI office and they needed some construction work, we would just, if we had that client and we had the contract mechanism, we would just direct them to you all to say, yes, here's a vehicle that you might want to consider, and they can work with you all on whether you can allow it or not.
Okay, when I was talking about the IDIQs that are open for both DOI, Fish and Wildlife, and our agency, I was talking about those, the A&E IDIQs that we're collaborating with. This specific road construction MATOC that Al has been talking about is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Al, but I believe it is restricted or limited to only executing on Forest Service lands, and so therefore only the Forest Service projects can be delivered against the contract.
A little bit both, because I worded in a way that it's in Alaska, and so Alaska is pretty broad. And you know, I just also mentioned that it's primarily going to be in the two forests, but I only intended it to be done for Forest Service because you know we got a lot of projects already, and it's, if we use all of it on that, it's going to, our capacity is gone anyway. So
okay.
Yeah, and the NPS, their projects, as you probably know, are usually extremely more significantly larger than ours. So yeah, that is one of the factors we have to consider when we're opening up any of our own IDIQs for other agencies to use.
Fair enough. And then my last question this time is, in general, with the new funding that's coming in, where do you see the biggest funding areas within the Forest Service? Is it going to be the construction? Is it going to be services? Where do you see where most of the funding from the GAO is going to come from or go direct towards?
So I'm on the planning team for GAOA for the national team, so I'll address this one. Each year we have to list projects and submit them to Congress for approval. So what we've seen so far for FY21 and with what has been submitted yet waiting for approval on FY22 is there is a lot of focus on construction related type of work. But that's not to say that there isn't a significant volume of services. I think the majority of the supplies may be in this first fiscal year, but each year is going to be different. And until Congress approves the projects that are submitted for each fiscal year, we don't know exactly which ones are going to be delivered.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. I'm going to go ahead. Oh, you've self-muted, so thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions? What I'm going to do is I am going to steal the presentation for just a second. Bear with me when I make myself presenter again. Show my screen. You get this second monitor up. All right, so while everyone was talking about the different IDIQ information and looking at sam.gov, and just a heads up, if you are using Chrome and you keep getting the site down for maintenance, I discovered that this morning, go in and clear the cookies on that browser so you can actually get to the site. So just a heads up, Chrome is storing that last. And so if by chance you tried to log in on SAM and you're getting that error message that's still showing down, clear the cookies on that, and then you can actually get to the site. That was a little frustrating on lessons learned on my part. But I just went in and hopefully everyone can see my screen. Let me just make sure.
Yeah, we can see it.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, so we have the sam.gov, and from the home page, I just put in Alaska, just a keyword to get to the search criteria. And then as Mike had let us know, the agency code for the Forest Service is 12C2. And you could see that I went in here under the federal organizations, and since he gave us the code, I was able to plug that in. So what I'm looking at right now on this screen, I use the keyword, it's here in green for just MATOC and the Forest Service. And we can see that there's quite a few of the different MATOC roads for multiple locations outside of the Alaska area. And I just wanted to call that to your attention since we're all looking at and talking about, and here specifically is this road maintenance construction MATOC for Alaska. One of the heads up I want to give you all, since I have a captured audience and we have a couple minutes to spare, is when we're using place of performance, sometimes that can limit, so we can actually put place of performance in here for the state. And so now we're just getting Alaska. If you are not finding that, instead of using it as a place of performance, oops. Oh, nice, they changed that. We can now do multiple states. That is new from the recent change. You can also just throw the state in your keywords, and you can see that I am now getting 19 using Alaska as a keyword versus when I had place of performance for the keyword for Alaska, I was just getting that one activity for MATOC. So just heads up some limitations, and I think that is dependent upon how the contracting officer, if they plug in that place of performance, and not all of them might have an identified place of performance. And so just keep that in mind if you're looking for those activities, that using that state code as a filter for a keyword versus putting it in under that place of performance might extend. But again, if I just wanted to point, since they were talking about that, using just the Forest Service here in the sam.gov under the contract opportunities, and just using that keyword for MATOC, we can see that there's 11 different activities that are posted related to. So I just wanted to pull that to your attention. And again, for if you need help maneuvering through the new contract opportunities segment of the SAM, Beta SAM, and the merge, you're always welcome to reach out to PTAC for assistance, we'd be glad to help. I will be working on putting together a new how to use a webinar on using the new combined site. Hopefully we can have that up sooner rather than later. So at this point in time, we did have this webinar scheduled for 10:30. We do have a little bit more time. Is there any other questions? Again, if you don't want to type them, if you want to just click that raise hand feature, I'd be glad to give you the mic. Have that conversation while we have this incredible knowledgeable panel of experts to talk to you. All right, well, since it is all quiet on the question and answer front, what I'd like to do, and we have Denise's contact information. Let me throw that up here, just so that you have Denise's contact information. And don't forget, we do have those procurement forecasts. If you think of questions, because I am infamous and very frustrated with myself, that I always think of the question after the event is closed, and it's like, oh, why didn't I ask of it? You know, as all of the information that's presented is kicking around the brain pan, and then the brilliance comes to light. So please reach out to us. When you have those questions, capture them. You can reply to your webinar invitation, get those questions to me, and if it's not something I can help, I will be more than happy to forward that on to Al and Denise and Mike, and we'll make sure to get those questions answered. So absolutely feel free to follow up, have conversations with us. That's why we're hosting the event. And I want to again thank Mike, Al, and Denise for joining us this morning. Hopefully this is going to be viewed as a success on your end, and we will hold more events. See, I paused just long enough. I think I have one more question. Bonnie Moore just says, thank you, it was very helpful. So I'd like to let you guys know that. Well, at this point, everyone, I am going to do, this is my last call for questions, last chance. Anne says thank you, Anne Southam. And I am going to go ahead and close this webinar. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy that beautiful sunshine outside. And again, I'll sit here for a couple more minutes. Yes, Al, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I just didn't want to shut down the show before, you know, make some.
Oh, absolutely.
That's okay.
Yes, please.
I just want to thank everybody for attending, especially, you know, PTAC has always been a great partner for us. Even, you know, wherever I go, different agency, you guys have been great. So thank you for that. And I just want to kind of, you know, with some previous comments, just to help manage expectations, that this MATOC tool is kind of intended for, of course, small businesses, but these small businesses would kind of be expected to have a little bit more experience, because these are larger projects, and so we're looking for more established past performance. And now I don't want you guys to feel like you're never going to get it, but I just want to make sure that, you know, that expectations are managed, and that, you know, you kind of have to work your way up. You know, start smaller, like on the BPAs that I mentioned, which are intended for smaller projects, and then even, you know, in the commercial realm, you can use past performance there. And so build up your resume, and then, you know, what I'm presenting today might just be like kind of like your end goal and what you're striving towards. Like it wasn't, you know, you don't have to get there overnight in one day, but it's going to take some time. But I just wanted to, you know, let you know that, so you don't feel disheartened, like, oh, I didn't get it this time. But, you know, by all means, ask for feedback, keep growing, and then keep trying, because in the end, perseverance and grit is going to pay off. And then one day, you know, I hope that some of the attendees here do make it on, and you know, and then, you know, the sky's the limit. You can, once you grow your business, maybe, you know, lower 48, because we're going to do a version of this for Washington and for Oregon, and so you never know what's in the future. But I just want to let you know, you know, it starts small, but you can grow from there. With that said, I just want to thank everybody for attending. It's awesome, because well, one of the major feedbacks that we get is like, oh, you know, government doesn't talk to us, and it's kind of like the chicken and the egg deal, where like, oh, we'll talk to you guys if more people attended. And so this is great, having so much attendees, and so I look forward to future opportunities to talk to everybody.
Thanks, Al. And you're right. I wasn't giving you guys a chance for your closing remarks. That was really thoughtless of me. So I apologize for that. Thank you for cutting me off
No,
midstream
don't
there.
worry. Thank you.
And you brought up some good points too, that where this MATOC might require a little bit more direct experience because we're looking at these larger dollar amounts. I just wanted to pull up, I have the forecast here back on my screen for the audience to view. And there is a lot of smaller construction opportunity outside of that MATOC. So feel free, look at these opportunities, reach out to the Forest Service, reach out to PTAC, and let's have conversations about that so you can really start finding those projects and building that past performance so that you can grow towards these larger MATOC programs. Denise, any closing comments?
No, I just wanted to thank everybody for attending today. I appreciate your time. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or to Jody, and we work together in partnership. So we'll get you the answers that you're looking for. Thank you.
And Mike, any closing comments from you?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. All right, everyone. Well, at this point, I believe, other than just myself talking, I let our experienced panelists here get their final comments, and I don't see any further questions. So again, I am going to go ahead and officially close the webinar right now. I can leave contact information up for you. I'm going to cheat and leave the PTAC contact information on the screen. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I did notice that we had attendees signed up from Alabama, Arizona, Oregon. So again, you're welcome to reach out to the Alaska PTAC or just do that aptac-us.org. And there's fabulous PTACs in Alabama, Oregon, and Arizona as well. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Have a fabulous day, and I am officially closing the webinar. Thank you. Denise, Al, Mike, thank you for joining us.